Good Good morning, everybody, and happy Taco Tuesday to all my prize picks players out there. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the doubleheader we have tonight. NBA playoffs, game 2 between the Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics. We've got the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies locking horns once again. So we've got game 1 under our belt. We're going to take a look at what happened in game 1, try to make heads or tails of today's player props, and figure out which ones we should be taking the overs and taking the unders on. So I appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Go ahead, down to the bottom of the video, hit the subscribe button. Also hit that like button. Make sure notifications are turned on so that anytime I go live or post new content, you're notified and you don't miss out, okay? Sounds like a deal to me. Now, yesterday you guys came through clutch. What I mean by that is we hit the over on 99.5 likes, so I appreciate everybody who is joining these live streams, who's watching, who's learning, who's along for the ride doing the player prop research, because the NBA playoffs are not easy, especially game 1s of a new series. I think we kind of found that out yesterday. I told you guys on yesterday's live stream, I said, this Philadelphia 76ers Miami Heat game is going to be bonkers, right? We don't know what to expect. James Harden kind of leading the way, right? Joel Embiid's out of the picture. Who's going to step up? Well, it wasn't so much James Harden stepping up. It was more Tobias Harris having a pretty big game as far as scoring goes. And then, I mean, the other props were just kind of all over the place. Same thing for the Miami Heat side. It was a Bam Adebayo type of night. Jimmy Butler kind of took the back seat. I don't know. It's just ugly. It was kind of what I thought it would be. Just very unpredictable. A lot of props ended up missing, especially if you took overs on some of these guys. I mean, it was chaos, right? We were kind of going into it blind. But game 2 of yesterday's slate, that was a little bit better. Dallas and Phoenix, that one had a little bit, I would say, better or more predictable outcomes. Chris Paul had himself a good game. Devin Booker was doing a little bit of everything. DeAndre Ayton, balling. Luka Doncic pretty much carrying the team on his shoulders. And then you had Maxi Kleber kind of coming out of left field, draining lots of threes. So it's looking like Dwight Powell is probably not going to be a major factor in this series. Just like the last series against Utah. Dwight Powell kind of might be phased out. If Maxi Kleber keeps hitting threes like that, Dwight Powell's got no chance of seeing the floor. And Jalen Brunson. Everybody was loving Jalen Brunson based on his success at the end of the season, into the round 1 of the playoffs. I mean, he was balling against the Utah Jazz. Pretty much hit the over on every single prop. Well, we got a humbling experience last night. Jalen Brunson did not have a great game. So if you took overs on Jalen Brunson, which I'm probably guessing a lot of people did, didn't go so well. Jalen Brunson did not do great. So maybe he comes and bounces back in game 2. But anyway, that's why I told you guys, be very careful. These are new series. Game 1, go a little lighter, scale back a little bit. Let's get a couple games under our belt, 1 or 2 games. And let's see what happens, right? We could kind of figure out things a little bit more clearly. The picture starts to develop a little bit more once we get a game or 2 under our belts. And in this situation, tonight's games, these are game 2s. So Milwaukee at Boston, Golden State at Memphis. This is the second time these 2 teams will meet in this series. So appreciate everybody joining me this morning. We got Ricky Carroll in the building. Good morning to you. Cam's here. Let's get it. Taco Tuesday for sure. For sure. Drew Brees is here. He says, good morning to the Patreon gang. Let's have a good Taco Tuesday. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jimmy Green says, well, PrizePicks has got the best of me. And now I have to deposit. Shaking my head. 3 losing days in a row. Best of luck today. Well, Jimmy, make sure you make that deposit in time for Taco Tuesday. Don't wait too long. You want to make sure you have some money in there in case we get a very delicious, scrumptious, tasty looking taco up on the PrizePicks board. You want to make sure you got some funds in there to take that taco if you feel so inclined. T-Bone's here. He says, let's get it, gang gang. Bounce back from NBA yesterday. Yeah, T-Bone. I hope you guys went light on NBA yesterday because, you know, it's just wild. Wild times. NBA playoffs are very, very difficult. I've seen a lot of players hang it up on PrizePicks or hang it up on betting on props during the NBA playoffs because it is so difficult. It's, you know, drying some of you guys out, sending you guys to the sidelines. That's why I say pace yourselves, right? We got until June. I think the NBA season goes all the way through the month of June. So pace yourselves. You don't have to try and win all the money on a difficult NBA slate, okay? We see Kyle's in the building. He's talking Taco Tuesday. Absolutely. We will get after those tacos. Michael's in the building. What's up? Bearded Gator here. What's up, Bearded Gator? One of our Discord and Patreon members. If you want to join Patreon, by the way, it's a great time to do so. Being that it's the 3rd of May, beginning of the month, best time to join Patreon. Just a community of folks who are passionate about player props, passionate about prize picks. We're in there doing the research, sharing info, sharing picks, entries, etc., etc. You know, not changing lives or anything, not solving the unsolvable mysteries or anything like that. We're just in there trying to do the Lord's work when it comes to player props, all right? Rolling up our sleeves and trying to get the job done, helping each other out. That's what it's all about in the community. So, great time to join Patreon. There's a link down in the description below if you'd like to sign up. Just $20 a month goes a long way, helps support me as a content creator. Appreciate you if you do decide to go through with that. Thomas is in the building. What's up, Thomas? He says, finally, Fred Dog has made it back to the live stream. What's up, CJ? Ready to get this Taco Tuesday on. I hear you. I hear you, Fred Dog. It's a great day for some player props. We got NBA going. We got NHL playoffs underway. We've got the MLB. Lots of great pitching options up on the PrizePicks board. So, yep, it's a good day. It's a good day for some props. Pimp Paul's in the building. Time to hammer these props. You got it, brother. You got it. Josh says, make sure you guys are voting on the right tacos today, please. I agree. I agree. You got to vote on the right ones. Right player, right prop. That's the aim, right? That's the goal. Make these good-looking props into great props. That's my motto. Chris Stevens is here. He says, let's get this cash, man. That is the goal. That is the goal. LNCJ711. I need MLB to help me recover from yesterday's NBA. I hear you. I hear you. It's I'm definitely shifting more of my money toward NBA props lately, or MLB props. More baseball, less basketball for me. NBA playoffs will drain your account if you're not careful. So more money for me is going toward the baseball props these days. Chris Smith says, James Harden under the PRA was my play of the day. Well, that ended up hitting. Chill Robots is here. Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, bleep. That's robot speak for hello, Chill Robots. Thanks for being here. Keenan is in the building. Game ones are a toss-up. You got that right, brother. They sure are. Contract Killer 56. Can you do MLB? Oh, I can. I can do some MLB. And I have been doing MLB. If you're part of Patreon and you're in the Discord, I mean, I've been posting stuff for MLB daily, nightly, around the clock. There's lots and lots of MLB going on today. Not Mig says he is blessed. Let's get this money. I'm glad to see that you are blessed. Essam Ibrahim says, good morning. Good morning back to you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Ken says, last night was rough. I kind of told you guys it would be rough, man. NBA playoffs are rough in general. Game ones of a new playoff series are even more rough, even more unpredictable, especially when you got a big guy like Joel Embiid out of the lineup. You got Kyle Lowry out for Miami. I knew it was going to be tough. That's why I did not go crazy. Just threw a little something out there, see if it hit. It didn't hit. It didn't hit. It was terrible. Yes, JS Vocals. I post picks on Patreon. Me, myself, and I, and some of the community members. We're all out here doing research, posting all kind of entries and picks and valuable statistics and info. And yeah, it's a good time. Everything goes down in Discord, by the way, JS Vocals. In case you're wondering, if you're not in Discord, if you're not active in Discord, you're probably missing out on some valuable information. So you need to stay tapped into Discord. That's the way that things typically work. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's get down to business here. We got a 7 p.m. tip-off between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. 216 points between these two teams. It's a 5-point spread here in favor of Beantown, Boston. Out for the Milwaukee Bucks, Chris Middleton. He's going to miss the entire series. Do not expect Chris Middleton to come back unless there's some miracle or something happens, a breakthrough for his health. He's expected to miss this entire series, though. George Hill also out tonight for Milwaukee. Over on the Boston side, keep an eye on Marcus Smart. He is a game-time decision. He is currently listed as questionable. I expect him to play, but being that he's on the injury report, it is a situation that we should monitor, right? So 216 points with a 5-point spread. The next game, 9:30 Eastern time tip-off between Golden State and Memphis. Now this one's got the higher total, 227.5 points. We're talking 2-point spread. It's favoring the road team, in this case, Golden State. 2-point favorites coming into this one. Andre Iguodala, game time decision. Over on the other side, we got some pretty impactful news here with Desmond Bane listed as questionable. Keep an eye on Desmond Bane's status. I'd be surprised if he sat, but you just never know. Steven Adams, he's been battling an illness, so he's game time decision. Williams, GTD, Aldama, GTD, and Tilly already ruled out for the Memphis Grizzlies. So, all right. That's it. 2 games. Bada bing, bada boom. So let's get down to business here. We're going to start by talking points. We'll be looking at the first game first. In other words, Milwaukee and Boston, checking out the points props for them. And then we'll move on to the Golden State-Memphis game, talk some points props for them. And then we'll move on from points to assists, rebounds, PRA, etc., etc. So to do our player prop research, I only do my player prop research one way, and it's with props.cash. So let's get the latest lines, the latest data pulled into props.cash here. We'll be taking a look at the trends. The trends, starting with the points. So what I did yesterday's video, I went ahead and did a points category, and then I went to splits, and I wanted to see how these teams are performing against one another dating back to 2020. And then I wanted to look at the highest hit rates. I'm going to go ahead and filter this out, just looking at the Milwaukee and Boston props. Okay, so that's how we're going to go about our business today. Bobby Portis at 14.5 points. 71% hit rate in his last 7 games against the Boston Celtics. That's a pretty nice little hit rate there for him. Wes Matthews at 6.5 points. He's faced Boston 3 times. 67% hit rate for Wes Matthews. He's at 6 points on PrizePicks today. Drew Holiday, 19.5 points in his last 8 games versus the C's. 50% hit rate. So kind of a coin flip. 4 for 8. In his last 8 versus Boston. Got Marcus Smart at 13.5 points. He's also sitting at a 50% hit rate in his last 8 contests versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Grayson Allen out there at 11.5 points. We're getting him at 10.5 on PrizePicks. He's got a 43% hit rate in his last 7 contests versus the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum, sure to be a popular play at 28.5 points. We're getting him at 27.5, but at 28.5 points, 43% hit rate in his last 7 contests versus the Milwaukee Bucks. We got Robert the Time Lord Williams at 7.5 points, 43% hit rate in his last 7 versus Milwaukee. You got Brook Lopez at 10.5 points, 40% hit rate in his last 5 versus Boston. He's at 11.5 on PrizePicks today. Pat Connaughton sitting out there at 7.5 points. We're getting him at 8 on PrizePicks, a little bit of a higher line on him. 38% hit rate in his last 8 contests versus Boston. Big Al Horford at 10.5 points, 33% hit rate versus the Milwaukee Bucks. 1 for his last 3 in facing them. And then finally, the man of the hour, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 30.5 points, just a 29% hit rate in his last 7 meetings against the Boston Celtics. We are getting him at 28.5 today. So a 2-point difference versus his line over on props.cash. So why don't we start with probably the biggest star of them all from this series, Giannis. You guys let me know if you have any other points props you want me to take a look at from the Milwaukee-Boston game. Let me know. You guys leave those in the chat and I'll be happy to help you out and we'll research those together. But we're starting here with Giannis. 28.5, we're seeing his line at 30.5. Let's just start by taking a look at the playoffs for this year. We're going to bump him down to 28.5 points. And through 6 playoff games, he's a 50% hitter at 28.5 points. So just 50% through 6 playoff games this season. Hasn't really had any monster scoring outputs. I mean, 33, 32, 33. We've talked about it in some streams in the past. You would think that this guy really steps up, that his numbers go way up, his hit rates soar with Chris Middleton off the floor. But it's really not the case. He seems to do worse, in fact, with Chris Middleton out of the lineup. Now, looking at the first game against Boston, he had 24 points, which is, quite a bit of a down game. We know Boston's defense is not to be messed with. They are a tough team. Let's just take a look and see what he's done against Boston in 4 contests this season. So he's faced him 4 times. He's only covered 28.5 points at a 50% hit rate. You could see 20 back in December, 36 on Christmas Day, 29 beginning of April, and then obviously the last game, just 24 points versus the C's on May 1st. So let's take a look at that 24 points. What happened? Was it a minute situation? Not really. I mean, he played a pretty good run of minutes, about 38 minutes played. So there's no problem with his minutes. He played plenty of minutes. He shot plenty of times as well. Attempted 25 field goals against the Boston Celtics, right? That was the most field goal attempts he has had in any of the previous meetings versus the Celtics. The problem is, on those 25 field goal attempts, he was 9 for 25. Just 9 for 25. 36% field goal percentage, which was easily his worst shooting output versus the Boston Celtics in any of their 4 meetings this season. You go back and look, he had a 50%, 57%, 52% field goal percentage. Things really plummeted in the last time that these two teams met. Just 9 for 25, 36%. So if he's going to keep shooting at 25 field goal attempts per game, we hope and pray that his field goal percentage, if it were to rise up to about 50%, I think he would be in a really good spot to hit the over on 28.5 points. But not a good shooting performance from him. 9 for 25. Maybe we get a little bit of a correction in tonight's game. Maybe he shoots the ball a little bit better. But I think this is public enemy number 1. The key to Giannis missing his points prop in the first game. 9 for 25. Just not very good. 3-point attempts. Don't take any 3-point props for him. I mean, he's just a shaky 3-point shooter to begin with. He's not taking a whole lot of them. He has failed to hit 1 3 versus Boston through 4 games. He is now a combined, 0 for 11 against Boston from beyond the arc. So, as far as free throw attempts go, he could have done a better job hitting his free throws versus Boston in game 1. He did make it to the line 11 times, only shot 55% from the line. Not the greatest free throw percentages either. Just a bad shooting night overall for Giannis, both from the field and from the charity stripe. So Giannis has got to do a better job at converting his attempts. Plain and simple, point blank period. We know that the opportunities will be there. The minutes will be there. He's just got to make them, right? That's what it really boils down to. So with that being said, let's get you a projection. We're using Fantasy Labs and their player projections for props. It's called Action Labs. It's a part of Fantasy Labs. But Giannis is sitting at 28.5 points on PrizePicks. Out on your favorite sports books, we're seeing him at 29.5 and 30.5. So we're getting 1 to 2 points of value on the Greek Freak. His projection tonight, 35.3 points. Sounds a little high to me. Don't expect him to have a 35-point game. But the fact that there is such a big gap, big differential, the 35 projection versus the 28.5 points, I think maybe he has himself a bounce back game here. We know the opportunities are there. He's just got to make them, right? He's just got to make them. So there you go. A little breakdown on Giannis Antetokounmpo and his points. I don't mind you going back to him. I think he could be in a nice little bounce back spot. Let's talk about this guy here because he's arguably the second biggest star in this series behind Giannis. Jason freaking Tatum, 27.5 points. Let's take a look at Jason Tatum. Maybe we can make heads or tails of this situation. Should we be going under? Should we be going over at 27.5 points? He's another star who, unsurprisingly, like a lot of stars we've seen in the playoffs so far, struggled, right? 21 points in game 1 versus Milwaukee. His point prop today is at 27.5. So let's bump him down to 27.5. These are all the playoff games for Jason Tatum so far. He's played a total of 5 playoff games. He is 3 for 5 so far in this playoff run. 60% hit rate at covering 27.5 points. So you can see what happened there against Milwaukee, just 21 points. Let's take a look at his previous matchups against the Bucks. He's now a combined 1 for 4, including regular season matchups this season against the Milwaukee Bucks at 27.5 points. He has stayed under 27.5 points back in game 1 when they first met in November. Now, he did have a 42-point outburst in the middle of December. Pretty good game there, obviously. And then Christmas Day, that matchup, 25 points there. And then, of course, like we talked about, just 21 points when they met in game one. So let's take a look at that. What happened to Jason Tatum? Why did he shoot, or why did he only score 21 points? Well, we kind of take a look and see how his minutes have fared against the Milwaukee Bucks in their 4 matchups. He's usually hovering right around 40 minutes per game, right? 39.8 minutes to be exact through 4 meetings. So we scroll down a little bit and we look at his field goal attempts, and the last time these two teams met, it was the fewest field goal attempts that Jason Tatum has had in any of their previous meetings. So he had 25 and 25 the first 2 times these teams met, 20 back in December, Christmas Day, and then just 18 field goal attempts on May 1st. Now, compounding issues here. Not only did he shoot the lowest amount of field goal attempts that he had in any previous matchup versus the Bucks, but then he went just 6 for 18, 33% from the field. That's not going to pay the bills. That's not going to get you over 27.5 points. So kind of like Giannis, another star here who really struggled from the field. We saw Antetokounmpo. We see now Tatum just not shooting a very high percentage. Not only were the opportunities down, but also just 6 for 18. That's not good. His 3-point attempts were also down, but did shoot a good percentage from beyond the arc, 4 for 9. I'll take 4 for 9, 44% from 3-point land any day of the week. We did see an uptick in his free throw attempts in the last 2 times that he's faced the Milwaukee Bucks, so that's kind of encouraging. But again, just 5 for 8 from the free throw line. I know he's a better free throw shooter than 63%, so we'd like to see Tatum, much like Giannis, convert on his free throw attempts, convert on his field goal attempts in order for us to have a real shot at hitting the over at 27.5. But the minutes are there. The opportunities were a little bit down, so maybe he shoots the rock a little bit more than 18 times tonight. 20 or more attempts would be ideal. A field goal percentage of 40 or better, that would also be ideal. So looking at Jason Tatum here at 27.5 points, we've got a prop line of 28.5 out on your various sports books. Now at 28.5, we're seeing the betting public smashing the over, minus 120, minus 125 on some sites. And we got a pretty nice little projection for him at 31 points, 31 versus the 27.5. Let me ask you guys something. These 2 guys, Giannis, Tatum, obviously the 2 biggest stars from this series. Who are you liking more to hit their point prop? If you were to take an over on one of these 2 guys, Giannis, Tatum, who do you feel more confident in hitting the over on their point prop? Very similar numbers, 28.5 for Giannis, 27.5 for Tatum. Who do you think's got the better chance, the better shot at actually hitting the over? Let me know. Let's see here. Let's see. Who else do we want to talk about? I guess the second stars from this game would be Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Though JF, you're wanting to talk about some Drew Holiday over on points. We could definitely do that. Let's look at this one for my man JF002. So he wants to look at Drew Holiday at 19.5. Let's do it. Let's do it. Drew Holiday going up against the Boston Celtics' vaunted defense. One of the better defenses, if not the best defense in the NBA right now. But we take a look at Drew Holiday through the playoffs so far. He's played 6 games, 2 for 6 at 19.5 points, just a 33% hit rate. He did have himself a good game 1 against Boston. So we saw Giannis have a down game. We saw Drew Holiday have an up game, 25. Good game for Drew Holiday in that one. But still, just 2 for 6 overall throughout 6 playoff games. So let's take a look and see what he's done against Boston in their previous matchups. He's now faced the Celtics 5 times. He has gone over 19.5 points in 3 out of 5, a 60% hit rate, averaging a pretty healthy 21.6 points per game versus the Boston Celtics. So Drew Holiday, man, doing pretty well against Boston, I would say, overall. If Marcus Smart, for some reason, happens to sit out tonight, I think that is a major upgrade and major boost for Drew Holiday. So definitely keep an eye on Marcus Smart. I don't expect him to be out But anytime you take the defensive player of the year out of the picture, that's going to lead to an easier time, an easier matchup for a guy like Jrue Holiday. So we talked about Jrue Holiday having a good game. I mean, his minutes have been pretty steady Freddy across the board. Anytime he plays Boston, he's up there at like 35 or more minutes. Not really worried about his minutes. Field goal attempts were pretty healthy too. We saw him attempt 20 shots. He went 8 for 20. Decent field goal percentage. It could get a little bit better. But if he's going to continue to shoot the ball 20 times, then I think he's going to be in line for an over at 19.5 points. As far as three-point attempts are concerned, we saw him attempt 5 threes in the first game against Boston, went 3 for 5, 60%. He usually doesn't shoot that many threes. If you look at some of his recent game logs, like against Chicago in that series, doesn't take a lot of threes, doesn't really make a lot of threes too, but we have seen him have some success against Boston from beyond the arc. So maybe his three-point prop should be considered. He's hit 4 and 3 in his last 2 meetings. As far as getting to the free throw line, he did a good job of doing that as well and has done a good job the last 2 times he's played against Boston. Went to the line 8 times back in April. And then we see him get to the line 6 times in game 1. Went 6 for 6 from the charity stripe. So just a good overall game for Jrue Holiday. His field goal attempts were up. His makes were up. I mean, everything looked good for Jrue. So will there be a correction tonight? Possibly. It could be one of those situations where Jrue goes under and Giannis finally starts to step up and has himself a better shooting game. But it's definitely Giannis is the A option and Jrue Holiday is the B option. And then they've got a plethora of good role players there in Milwaukee. As far as his prop line is concerned, he is at 19.5 points, so we're not really seeing any value here. PrizePicks is right in line with the other sports books at 19.5 points. It seems like the betting public's kind of torn on what to do with Jrue Holiday's points prop today. We see him as a slight betting favorite to go over on some sites, a slight betting favorite to go under on some sites. His projection is 21.6, a little bit higher than the 19.5. So what are you guys thinking? You want to go over or under on Jrue Holiday? Over or under on Jrue Holiday at 19.5. Kind of a controversial one. I don't know. I still don't trust him, being that he's only hit the over on 19.5 points in a third of his playoff games this season. So hard for me to get on board with him. Jaylen Brown's going to be another popular option, I'd imagine, at 22.5 points. Let's talk about him real quick, and then we can move on to the next game. Talk about that late night game. But yeah, Jaylen Brown here, sitting at 22.5. That's looking kind of juicy when you first kind of consider the player and the prop, right? Looking at Jaylen Brown at 22.5, I mean, he is always, for the most part, always flirting with 22 to 23 points throughout this playoff run so far. We've seen him hit the over in just 2 out of 5 playoff appearances. That's just a 40% hit rate. My man only had 12 points in game 1. To say that he had a bad game is an understatement. That's a terrible game for him. Previously scoring 22, 23, 22, and 23, and then all of a sudden just 12 points. Let's look into this one a little bit closer here. The minutes were there. He played 38 minutes. That's plenty of run. His field goal attempts, however, were down quite a bit. Shot the ball just 13 times. So kind of like Jason Tatum, both of the stars for the C's saw fewer field goal attempts in game 1 versus Milwaukee than they had in previous games. And then on top of that, he was just 4 for 13, a 31% field goal percentage. Let's take a look at some of these other games against Milwaukee this season. At 23.5 or 22.5 points rather, he's only hit the over against the Bucks 1 out of 4, so 25% hit rate. So he struggles, from what it looks like, struggles against Milwaukee in terms of scoring the basketball. His 3-point attempts in game 1 were there. I mean, he shot the 3 9 times, went 3 for 9. So maybe we take a 3-point prop for him, depending on what his line is. If it's like 2.5, I think maybe that could be a look. Possibly. Did not get to the free throw line a whole lot, which is something that he had done in previous games versus Milwaukee. Just 2 free throw attempts, went 1 for 2 from the charity stripe. So it would be nice to see him get a little bit more aggressive, possibly shoot the ball a little bit more. But yeah, the minutes were there. Just the field goal attempts were way down, shooting only 13 shots against the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's not ideal. We need him to shoot the ball more if we're considering any overs on him. Now, his prop line, 22.5. We're seeing him at 23.5 on some sites, but most sites have him at 22.5. At 22.5, they're expecting a different type of game here for Jaylen Brown. And I mean the betting public. They're taking the over at 22.5 points. Minus 125, minus 130 on some sites. A projection of 26.9 seems a little high for me. Seems a little high. I could see him, down around the 22 to 24 point range as long as he's shooting the ball and converting on those shots. So those are your point options. I mean, there's other ones here to consider. Obviously, Brook Lopez, Marcus Smart, depending on if he plays or not. Bobby Portis has done a pretty good job historically scoring against the Boston Celtics. So there's definitely other options. There's plenty of options, in fact. But let's go ahead and move on to the next game, the later game. I think people are probably a little bit more excited about this game than they are about the early game, which was kind of the case last night. I didn't like the Philadelphia-Miami game quite as much as the Dallas-Phoenix game. So here we are. We got Golden State and Memphis. Just taking a look at some of the point props from this game, guys who are hitting at a high clip against the opponent. So we've seen Andrew Wiggins in his last 8 games against the Memphis Grizzlies hit the over on 14.5 points in 75% of his games. So that's a really nice hit rate. He's leading the way. Then you got Steph Curry at 27.5 points. He's only at 25.5 on PrizePicks, so we're getting a 2-point discount on Steph. But in the last 6 games against Memphis, he's hit the over at 27.5 in 67% of his games. Jordan Poole, who is kind of like Jalen Brunson in terms of going to earn himself a fat contract. I'm not seeing Jordan Poole up on the board just yet, so it looks like they're keeping Jordan Poole away from us early on. But if we get Jordan Poole at 19.5 points, he's hit the over against Memphis in 50% of his last 8 games, so he's 4 for 8 against Memphis. Ja Morant, he is up on the board, but at 26.5, not 27.5. 50% hit rate against Golden State, so 4 out of his last 8, he's hit the over at 27.5. Jaren Jackson Jr., 14.5 on the books, 15.5 on PrizePicks. He's got a 50% hit rate in his last 6 contests versus the Dubs. So he's doing a decent job of covering. Dylan Brooks, we're getting him at 16.5 instead of 17.5. 43% hit rate in his last 7 contests versus Golden State. You got Draymond Green at 8 points instead of 8.5. At 8.5, though, 29% hit rate in his last 7 games against the Memphis Grizzlies. Desmond Bane, he was one of the guys that we needed to keep an eye out on. He is currently questionable. He is on the injury report. We're getting him at 17.5 on PrizePicks today. 22% hit rate in his last 9 meetings against Golden State. That's not very good. And then Klay Thompson, 21.5. He is 0 for his last 2 when facing the Memphis Grizzlies and covering his points. So what points props from this game are you guys interested in looking at? Talking points. Points from Golden State and Memphis. And then I see you guys mentioning a bunch of other props. We'll get to those. Just hold off on those so I don't have to go scrolling and looking for them, but we'll get to those in just a minute. Let's focus on points for Golden State and Memphis. Let me know what ones you want me to look at. The prop plug is mentioning Steph over on points being a minus 233 betting favorite. Okay, well, I did mention that we are getting value here on Steph Curry from the looks of things at 25.5 points. Let's start with him. Let's start with Chef Steph Curry at 25.5. We'll take a look at what he's done through the playoffs. Of course, we know Steph missed some games, or was limited, I should say, limited in some games for the playoffs as far as his minutes. But we did see him start to ramp those minutes up as that Denver Nuggets series sort of carried on. But so far in the playoffs, 4 for 6, 67% hit rate at 25.5 points. He came out in game 1 against Memphis, scoring just 24. So based on today's prop line of 25.5, that would have obviously been an under, hence the red bar here on props.cash. So let's take a look at what he's done against Memphis this season. He has now faced the Grizzlies a total of 4 times. We've seen some major scoring outputs from Steph Curry against this Memphis Grizzlies squad. 36 the first time these teams met all the way back in October. 46 46 points at the end of December. Huge game there. 27 at the start of January. And then obviously the last game, 24 points. So let's take a closer look at what happened with Steph Curry in game 1 against Memphis. Why couldn't he hit the over like he did in the 3 previous meetings? I mean, 36, 46. What happened here? Something had to have happened. So let's look at the minutes here for Curry. They were good at 37. Maybe we'd like to see him closer to 40. You know, a little bit more run would be good. Looking at his field goal attempts, they were the lowest field goal attempts that he's had in any of the previous 4 meetings versus Memphis. So there's that. He did still shoot 20 times. That's a lot of field goal attempts. So it's not like he shot 15, 12 times. I mean, he shot 20 times. Ideally, 40%. We'd like to see him, make a few more shots. All it takes is 1 or 2 more buckets from Steph, and he's hitting the over on his point prop. 8 for 20, 40% though in game 1 versus Memphis. We look at his 3-point attempts. He did shoot 12 of them, was 5 for 12. 42%, I'm not complaining about 42% from beyond the arc for him. I'm not mad at that. Anybody who's shooting over 40% from 3, that's a good shooting night. His free throw attempts though, maybe we blame his free throw attempts. He only got to the line 4 times, went 3 for 4 from the foul line. Previous games against Memphis had 10, 12, and 7 attempts. It was 100% and 90% in those games. So maybe that's the key. Maybe he's just got to get to the free throw line a couple more times. That could be the difference, right? From what it looks like. Anyway, it's not like he was really, really far off of 25.5. Like I said, he makes 1 more bucket, ends up with 26 points. He's hitting the over at 25.5. So I don't mind us going back to Steph Curry. If you take a look at props.cash here at 25.5 points, you see he is a minus 180 at 25.5. So that's pretty good juice at 25.5. Minus 180 over on a prop. Yeah, I think it's worth taking a shot on. Let's wrap this up here on Curry by getting you a projection on his points. He is projected for 28.6. That's about 3.1 points higher than the 25.5. And then we're seeing his point prop line at 26.5 and 27.5 out on all your favorite sports books. So he's a point or 2 higher everywhere else than he is on PrizePicks. So I think 25.5 is looking doable. Are you guys trusting Curry? 1 more made shot for Curry would have put him over, whether it be a 2 or a 3-pointer. Do we go back to Curry tonight in game 2 on the over at 25.5? I kind of think we do. I think it's worth at least taking in one of your entries. Maybe not all of them, but let's see. Saya Man is talking about Bane. Adam Squire wants to talk about Desmond Bane as well. We got to keep in mind that Bane is currently questionable. He's a little bit banged up from what it sounds like. He's on the injury report, so keep an eye on Desmond Bane. But Bane at 17.5 points, we saw what he was doing in the previous series. I mean, he was having himself a pretty good series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but this is not the T-Wolves, folks. This is a much tougher test for him in the Golden State Warriors. So we bump him down to 17.5 points. We take a look at his playoff games from this season. So far, he's 4 for 7. Not terrible at a 57% hit rate. But what is terrible is his game 1 against Golden State where he had just 9 points. A really, really bad game for Desmond Bane at 9 points. Let's take a look at previous games versus Golden State this season. At 17.5, he's covered this in just 2 out of 5 meetings versus Golden State. 19 back in October, 22 back at the end of March. But yeah, not a fantastic hit rate at 40%, 2 for 5. So let's try to figure out what's happening with Desmond Bane. I mean, he played 32.5 minutes. It seems a little low to me, but when you look at previous games versus Golden State, he's usually right around that 30 to 32 minute mark, give or take. Right? Field goal attempts were definitely down. He shot the ball just 10 times in game 1, went 3 for 10, 30%. So less shot volume, less conversions on those limited shots. So 10 attempts, 3 makes, that's not good. 30% is terrible. And we've seen him shoot pretty poorly against Golden State in previous games. 3 for 14 in January, 4 for 11 back in December. So we need him to shoot closer to 15 times, and we need that field goal percentage to definitely come up in order for us to trust Bane. We know Bane, he likes to shoot the 3 ball. He did shoot it 5 times, which again marked a low for him versus Golden State in any of their previous matchups. Just 5 3-point attempts, 1 for 5, not a good shooting night. Bane just wasn't shooting a lot, and he wasn't shooting well when he did take those shots. So 3 free throw attempts in, 2 for 3 from the line. So he's not getting to the free throw line a whole lot. He's probably not a guy that I would take any kind of free throw props. If they were available, I probably wouldn't take him for a free throw prop. So the minutes were pretty healthy. The field goal attempts were definitely down, though, at just 10. And he shot 1 for 5 from beyond the arc. So it was just a bad game overall for Bane. We've seen him struggle, though, against Golden State. So let's take a look at a projection for him. Whew, come on, that's a little high. 21.8 points for Bane. 21, let's call it 22 points. He scored 22 against Golden State 1 time in their previous 5 matchups. I think 22 points is asking a lot. He's going to have a really, really good game. Anyway, he's at 17.5 on PrizePicks. We're seeing him at 17.5 and 18.5 out on your different sports books out there. So, we're getting a little bit of value here on Bane at 17.5. But with him being on the injury report heading into tonight's game, I'm a little concerned. I don't know that I want to take the over. I don't know that I want to take the over on Desmond Bane at 17.5, being that he's a little banged up. So that's kind of my vibe on Bane. What other points props are you guys liking from this particular game? Any others? Moody's asking about Brandon Clark. I see Breadwinner Bob's also asking about Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark has been doing his thing here lately. Let's talk about Brandon Clark. And then we could talk about Ja Morant for you, Mr. Ricky. But Brandon Clark definitely been balling at 12.5 points. With Steven Adams on the injury report, we've seen Brandon Clark really start to step up, getting more opportunities to play. And he's making the most of his opportunities. Some would even say he's outplaying Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. I wouldn't be mad at those who said that he's outplaying Jaren Jackson Jr. Let's look at Brandon Clark's game logs here. At 12.5 points, we've seen dominance, right? 6 for 7. 6 for 7 through 7 playoff games. That's an 86% hit rate. He was a perfect 6 for 6 in covering 12.5 points versus Minnesota. But again, this is not Minnesota, folks. This is Golden State. A bit of a tougher challenge for him. Against the Dubs this year, at 12.5 points, he is now 1 for 3. 33% hit rate. The games that he missed, though, he's been sitting right there at 12 points, right? So he's going to be in the mix for 12 or more points, typically. Let's take a look and see what happened to him in the last game, or game 1 in this case. He played over 30 minutes, so got a healthy amount of minutes. Not really concerned about that. That's good for him if he gets 30 minutes. His field goal attempts were down a little bit. He shot the ball just 6 times, 4 for 6. We'd like to see him up here at like 9 field goal attempts like he was in previous games. So if he could get, a couple more shots in, I think the 12.5 is doable. But at 4 for 6, that's not a bad field goal percentage at 67%. He's not really a 3-point shooter. Free throw attempts, he makes 1 more free throw, and he's over 12 points. 1 more point is all we needed from him. So yeah, overall, I don't mind you going back to Brandon Clark. 1 or 2 more shots fall for him, and he's over, right? His point prop line is 12.5 everywhere you look. He is a betting favorite at 12.5 to go over. His projection, 17.4, which again, seems a little high. I don't think he gets 17, but I think he'll be right there in the hunt for 12 to 13 points. Any other points props from this game? I see Morant. Ricky was asking about Ja Morant. Yeah, we'll talk Ja Morant and then we'll move on from points to maybe assists. Yeah, we'll go assists next. Ja Morant here. 26.5 points. Let's take a look at what he's been up to throughout the playoffs. So we're getting Ja at a 26.5 line today. He's at 27.5 from the looks of it out on the books. At 26.5, he's 3 for 7 through the playoffs this year. 3 for 7. We've seen a definite correlation. When he gets to the free throw line for like double-digit free throw attempts, he typically hits the over on his point prop. Let's see what he's done against Golden State. At 26.5 points, he has hit in 3 out of 4 games against Golden State so far. So has had a pretty good success rate at going over 26.5 points, 75% hit rate through 4 contests. He's usually getting pretty good minutes. He did so in game 1 at over 38 minutes. He shot the ball a whopping 31 times versus Golden State in game 1. If Ja Morant continues to shoot the ball 30 times per game, I'm going to keep hammering the over on his points. 31 field goal attempts, 14 from 31. 14 of 31. That is crazy. 45%, decent field goal percentage. He shot 11 threes, went 4 for 11. The volume was insane for Ja Morant. So it's no wonder that a guy like Desmond Bane did not hit his points prop. Ja Morant was taking all the shots. Ball hogging. Allen Iverson style, right? 31 field goal attempts, 4 for 11 from beyond the arc. His free throw attempts were actually pretty low, just 3. 3 free throw attempts, 2 for 3. So he made up for a lack of free throw attempts by shooting a lot more 3-point and field goal attempts. Insane volume. If he continues to shoot 30 shots a game, like I said, I will continue to hit the over on Ja Morant at 26.5 points. So let's get a projection on Morant tonight. He's projected for 31.7 points, which doesn't sound completely asinine. It doesn't sound absurd. I mean, again, if he's going to shoot the ball 30 times, 31 to 32 points is definitely achievable. That might not be a bad projection for him. He's at 27.5 everywhere. Other than PrizePicks, 27.5. They're betting the under there at -120, -116. So pretty crazy, man. Ja Morant shooting that many times. You got to keep considering the over on him if he's going to get 30 shots. Saya Man says, Ja Morant points, the baby Iverson, please. I mean, yeah, that kind of volume, it does remind me of AI, for sure. For sure. Moody, I would say yay on Morant. I mean, it's only one game. We only have a 1-game sample. But I would say yay, the over, in other words, on Morant, with him shooting that many points, or shooting that many field goal attempts. Anyway, let's move on from points. Let's talk some assist props. It's a pretty good amount of different assist props here. We'll pull up the hit rates from the Milwaukee-Boston game. And looking at some of these, there's not a whole lot to talk about here, but Al Horford at 3.5 assists. He's hit the over in 2 out of 3 games versus Milwaukee, dating back to last season. Jaylen Brown at 3.5 assists. We're getting him at 4 on PrizePicks. He has hit 3.5 in 57% of his last 7 games. Excuse me. Marcus Smart at 6.5 assists. 50% hit rate, 4 for 8. That's not bad. Drew Holiday at 6.5. 38% hit rate in his last 8 games versus Boston. You got Jason Tatum at 5.5, 29% hit rate in his last 7 games against Milwaukee. Man, congestion, man. Excuse me. Giannis, I can't do it. Gosh, get those demons out. Giannis at 6.5 assists, 29% hit rate. I'm dying, guys. Don't let me die. 29% hit rate in his last 7 games against the Boston Celtics. So which assist props are you guys liking here? Breadwinner Bob's already dropping some heat here. He thinks Giannis Antetokounmpo over on assists is the look. So let's start there. Let's start with the Greek Freak. His points did not hit in the last game. But let's take a look at his assists here. Throughout the playoffs, first and foremost, at 6.5 assists. Decent hit rate. 4 out of 6 games, he's hit the over. 4 out of 6, he has hit the over at 6.5 dimes. Averaging 7.2 assists throughout the playoffs so far. Now we take a look and see what he's done against Boston this season at 6.5. He had 12 assists in game 1. But you look at the previous 3 games against Boston, 3, 5, and 5. 12, I think that was an outlier, man. I don't know if he comes back tonight with 12 assists. That just seems a little fluky. Seems a little fluky to me. Anyway, let's jump ahead and take a look at a projection for Giannis's assist. His points were down. His assists were way up. Do we think things shift? Is there a correction in store tonight? Giannis at 6.5. I got him projected for 6.9, so that's close to 7. At 6.5, the public's liking the over here. Minus 125, minus 140, and even minus 148. Kevin's bringing some news. He says that the PrizePicks Discord, the official PrizePicks Discord, which is where you're going to go to vote on these tacos for Taco Tuesday. He says that the Discord is going to vote for Tatum or Giannis assists for the taco. Ooh, do we like that? Tatum or Giannis assists for the taco. That's what the PrizePicks official Discord members are saying that they're going to do. I don't know if I like that, man. What are they going to reduce? I mean, if they put... Yeah, are they going to put Giannis's assist down to 5.5? They're going to put him down to 4.5? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's look at Jason Tatum's assist, since you guys are saying that there's a chance that maybe they vote Jason Tatum's assists in at 5.5. Potential taco here. We'll call this a potential Tatum taco alert. Kevin's saying that there's a lot of chatter that it could be Giannis, it could be Tatum for their assists for today's NBA taco. Let's see what Mr. Tatum's been up to then at 5.5 assists. Through 5 playoff games, he has hit the over in 4 out of 5. That's an 80% hit rate. So I'm okay with that. So far, so good. 80% hit rate through 5 playoff games. What about against Milwaukee this season? At 5.5, 1 for 4. So kind of like Giannis. 3 previous meetings, did not hit the over on his assist prop. But in game 1 of this series, both guys saw their scoring go down and their assists go up. Interesting. Let's get you a projection on Tatum. 5.3 assists. They have him going under 5.5. But the betting public, they're liking the over on Jason Tatum's assists. Minus 145 and minus 148. So both Giannis and Tatum at 6.5 and 5.5 assists respectively. Big betting favorites to go over at 6.5 and 5.5. So I guess that's what they're going to be doing, huh? They'd rather go assists. I hear you. I thought Giannis's points looked pretty good. I thought Tatum's points also looked pretty good. I mean, I don't know what the discount would be on these two guys if they voted in an assist prop. Or if they voted in a points prop. Like, I don't know what they would discount these two, but I don't know. I just seem like I trust the points a little bit more than the assists for these guys. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of a correction potentially coming tonight where we don't see Giannis go for 12 assists again. We see those come down and see his points go up. He shot a ton of shots. He just didn't make a ton of shots. I think he has a better shooting night tonight, does Giannis. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, I get what you're saying, breadwinner Bob. You know, they're going to be locked in on the top 2 players, Giannis and Tatum. But it's not like Giannis wasn't out there shooting the ball. I mean, he shot the ball a lot. He just didn't have a very high field goal percentage. We looked at Giannis's points pretty in depth from game 1, and it was just a bad shooting night for him. I mean, there's also the chance, this is Giannis we're talking about, there's a chance he goes for 30 points hits the assists and hits his rebound prop. I mean, he's a triple-double threat anytime he takes the floor. So it's not as binary as like, he's not going to hit his points prop. That means he's going to hit his assist prop. Like, he could easily do both, right? He could hit the over on points and assist on any given night. Any given night. Benny says, like the video, ladies and gents, it costs us nothing, and it's the least we can do, isn't it? He's doing this for free in his own time. Give the man a like. Well, I appreciate you, Benny. Thank you for reminding the good folks. Appreciate that. Hit that like button, like Benny said. Any other assist props that we're liking from this game? Drew Holiday, maybe? Marcus Smart, potentially? Are we going there? Are we looking at assist props for either of these two guys? Going once, going twice, or we can move on to the next game. Let me know. Moody saying I've got Morant points and Lopez rebounds in already. Okay. All right, let's go on to this next game. Any Golden State, Memphis assist props that you guys are liking? Let me know. Golden State, Memphis. We got Klay Thompson at 2.5 assists, a 100% hit rate, 2 for 2 against the Memphis Grizzlies. We got Dylan Brooks at 2.5 assists. We're getting him at 2 on PrizePicks. 57% hit rate in his last 7 games against Golden State. Draymond Green at 7.5. We're getting him at 7. 57% hit rate in his last 7 versus Memphis. Steph Curry at 5.5 assists. 3 out of his last 6 against Memphis. He's hit. We're getting him at 6 today. Jordan Poole, not up on the board yet. Ja Morant at 8.5 dimes, just a 25% hit rate in his last 8 games against Golden State. Benny's asking, how are Ja Morant's assists looking? At 8.5, well, the hit rates don't look great. 25% in his last 8 games against Golden State. So let's look at Ja Morant. We'll start there. He has been dropping a lot of dimes off in the playoffs so far, though. We look at what he's done here through 7 playoff games, 6 for 7, and 86% hit rate. You gotta love that. So not only did he go bonkers in terms of scoring in Game 1 versus Golden State, but he also had a healthy 10 assist type of game. Hit the double-double. So Ja Morant doing a really good job throughout this playoff run so far. Now against Golden State, these two teams have met 4 times. He was previously 0 for 3 in covering 8.5 assists until Game 1 of this series where he dropped 10 assists. So that's looking pretty good there. Let's get you a projection on Ja Morant. They got him projected for 8.3 assists. That's not really helping us out at all. At 8.5 though, minus 140 to go over 8.5, minus 148 on some books. So there you go. Ja Morant at 8.5. Huge scoring night for him. Big assist night for him in Game 1 against Golden State. Do we think Ja Morant repeats that success? Do we think he goes over 8.5 once again? That is the question. We'll have to see about that. You guys are saying that the NHL Taco is now live. What is that looking like? Oh. Evgeny Malkin is the Taco. He was at 2.5 shots on goal. He is now at 1.5 shots on goal, thanks to Taco Tuesday. And you take a look at his last 5 game logs. Looks like he's gone over 1.5 shots on goal pretty easily, especially in his last 4 games. 6, 4, 4, and 7 shots on goal. You gotta love that. It almost looks free. It almost looks free. Do I have a projection for Evgeny Malkin? I might. Got Malkin projected for 2.5 shots on goal. That's obviously more than 1.5. And then out on the sports books at 2.5 shots on goal, minus 152 betting favorite. So yeah, we take the Taco. We don't overthink this. I think we just take it. We'll take the Taco on Evgeny Malkin. I'm not mad at that. Let's go Over to rebounds. I see David's mentioning he likes Ja Morant for rebounds more than assists. Let's talk about some rebound props. But yes, for the record, I think we take the Malkin Taco. It's looking pretty good. Looking pretty darn good. Looking at some rebounds here. We'll start things off with the Milwaukee-Boston series. Any rebound props that you guys want to take from this Milwaukee-Boston game? We got Brook Lopez at 4.5. He's hit the over on 4.5 rebounds against the Boston Celtics in 80% of his last 5 games versus the C's. So that's looking pretty good. Pat Connaughton at 3.5 rebounds, got a 75% hit rate against Boston in his last 8 games. That's looking pretty strong. Drew Holiday, 4.5 rebounds, has hit the over on that number in 63% of his games in the last 8. So that's looking pretty nice. Grayson Allen at 2.5 boards, just a 57% hit rate in his last 7 meetings against Boston. Robert Williams also sitting at 57%. He's hit the over in his last 7 games and 57% of those. Jason Tatum at 6'5", 57%. Jaylen Brown, 6 rebounds on PrizePicks, 6.5 on the books, 43% in his last 7 games versus Milwaukee. Marcus Smart at 3.5. We're getting him at 3 on PrizePicks, a little bit of value there. 38% hit rate in his last 8 games versus the Bucks. Big Al Horford, 8 rebounds. He's at 8.5 on the books, 1 for his last 3 versus Milwaukee. Giannis at 12.5 rebounds, just 29% hit rate in his last 7 meetings against the Celtics dating back to last season. Bobby Portis, he's at 10 on PrizePicks, 10.5 on the books, just a 14% hit rate in his last 7 against the Boston Celtics. And then Wesley Matthews, not up on the PrizePicks board, he's over his last 3. So Kevin saying Drew Holiday rebounds is the first one we should be looking at here. So Drew Holiday's faced Boston 8 times since last season. 63% hit rate. Let's start with Drew Holiday. He's saying it's stupid. I know, but it's been hitting and no bump up. Okay. All right. I'm sold, man. We're going to do it. We're going to look at it. So Drew Holiday at 4.5 rebounds throughout the playoffs so far. 5, 4, 6, and 83% hit rate. Well, it's definitely been hitting. You're right there. You are on the money there. 83% hit rate through 6 playoff games for Drew Holiday at 4.5 rebounds. And what about Boston? Whoo. Well, he's faced the Celtics 5 times now. He's hit the over on 4.5 rebounds versus the Boston Celtics in 80% of his games. 4 for 5 this season against the Celtics. All right. Well, sign me up, man. I've seen enough here based on the hit rates that Drew Holiday's looking like a pretty solid option here. 4 for 5 against Boston this season. In the playoffs, 5 for 6. You can't ask for anything much more than that, right? I mean, you could, but then you're just being greedy. 80+% hit rates throughout the playoffs and against Boston. So that's looking really good. He's projected also for 5.5 rebounds. He's a betting favorite at 4.5 rebounds to go over, -150 and -145. So Kevin, I think you're onto something here. And the fact that we're seeing Drew Holiday at 5.5 rebounds on some sites also is a pretty solid look. Leads you to believe that 5 to 6 rebounds is what these lines makers are thinking Drew Holiday might be on. So yeah, very nice pick there, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that with us. I like that, Drew Holiday. Over 4.5 rebounds. Essam, you're asking about Brook Lopez for rebounds. We don't think of Brook Lopez as a big-time rebounder. He's kind of a stretch center, guy who spends a lot of time out on the perimeter. But let's take a look at Lopez here. At 4.5 boards through 6 playoff games, he has hit the over in 5 of 6, 83% hit rate. That's looking pretty solid so far. And then against Boston, this season. He's played Boston twice. He has now hit 2 out of 2 games against the Celtics, pulled in 10 rebounds versus Boston in game 1 of this series. So that's looking really solid too. 83% hit rate through the playoffs, 100% hit rate against Boston. And these were both recent games. Obviously game 1 where he had 10 boards, but then just at the beginning of April here had 7 rebounds versus Boston. So big Brolo coming through on the boards. Both him and Drew Holiday, I think, should be in serious consideration for your entries tonight. He's projected for 5.4 rebounds. We're seeing him at 4.5 out on different sports books. Huge betting favorite right now at minus 155, minus 150 to go over. And we're seeing him as high as 5.5 rebounds out on various sports books. Betting favorite to go under at 5.5, but just the fact that they have him listed at 5.5 instead of 4.5 leads me to believe that their lines makers think 5 to 6 rebounds is a good outcome for Brolo. So I think both of those look like fine plays. Are we liking anything from the Boston Celtics side of things for a rebound prop? I think Holiday and Lopez are going to make, going to be top of the list for me. Holiday at 4.5 looks like a good over. Lopez at 4.5 looks like a good over, but nothing else from this game. Bob's ready to move on to Wiggins. He's ready to move on to the next game. I guess there's nothing else worth talking about, especially not on the Celtics side when it comes to rebounds. All right, let's just move on then. Looking at the other game here. Golden State, Memphis. Looking at some of the hit rates on these guys, you got Andrew Wiggins. He's now at 5 rebounds, but at 4.5 boards. He's hit the over at 4.5 rebounds in 75% of his games against Memphis. So that's looking good. Draymond Green at 7.5 rebounds, 71% hit rate in his last 7 contests against the Grizzlies. So Wiggins and Draymond both have had a lot of success against Memphis in their last 8 and 7 games, respectively. From there, you got Jaren Jackson Jr. sitting at 7 rebounds. He's at 7.5 on the books, 50% hit rate for him in his last 6 versus Golden State. Steph Curry, he's at 5.5 on the books, 50% hit rate, or 3 for 6 against Memphis. You got Poole, not up on the board. Maybe we'll see some Jordan Poole at some point. Desmond Bane, talked about him being on the injury report. Be careful with Bane props today. At 3.5 rebounds, just a 22% hit rate in his last 9 meetings against Golden State. That's pretty bad. Dylan Brooks, also pretty bad at 3.5, 14% hit in his last 7 against Golden State. It's probably why we're getting him down at 3. Somebody mentioned they like Ja Morant's rebounds more than they like his assists. Well, Ja Morant at 7.5 boards, just a 13% hit rate in his last 8 games versus Golden State. That's not too great. And then Klay Thompson at 3.5 boards, he is 0 for 2 against Memphis. So let's see here. Andrew Wiggins is the first one that was mentioned by Breadwinner Bob. Shout out to BWB. Big bread winning Bob. Let's start with him. First look, let's go to this season's playoff run. Wiggins, we're going to get him at 5 boards over on PrizePicks instead of the 4.5. But you can see what he's been up to as far as this playoff series, this playoff run. Against Denver, he was a perfect 5 for 5 at 5 or more rebounds. We saw in game 1, Wiggins continued to rebound well, had 8 rebounds versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Very big number there. So throughout 6 playoff games this season, he's hit 5 or more in every single one of them. So that's looking like a good start, right, for Andrew Wiggins. Now, what about against the Memphis Grizzlies? He's played the Grizzlies now 4 times this season. The first 2 meetings, just 4 rebounds, but He's right there in the mix at 4 to 5 rebounds. And then the next 2 games, end of March, he played, had 6 boards. And then obviously game 1, he had 8. So yeah, overall, I think Wiggins for rebounds looks like a really solid option. Dude's been hitting consistently throughout the playoffs this season. Keep going back to it, right? At 5.5 boards out on the sports books, they're betting it under at -145, but we're getting him at 5 here on PrizePicks. And he's got a projection of nearly 5 at 4.9. So I would say we lean toward the over on Andrew Wiggins. Take him over. Maybe it's a push. But as we've seen throughout the playoffs, he's been going over 5 rebounds more often than not. So I like that one. That's a good call out, Breadwinner Bob. Liking that one. Essam is saying that Jaren Jackson Jr. has been bumped up to 7.5 rebounds. Let's look at that. Yes, he has. He is now at 7.5 rebounds. True, true, true. Well, yeah, I think you guys are onto a good one with Wiggins. Is there any other ones from this game that you're liking? Essam saying that Grayson Allen's threes are looking good. We could talk about those. Otto Porter Jr. also being mentioned at 4.5 rebounds. I got to be honest with you. I haven't taken any Otto Porter Jr. props at all this season, regular season or playoffs. So let's see if we can find out anything about Otto Porter Jr. here on props.cash. Go to rebounds, Porter. They don't have any data for Otto Porter Jr.'s rebounds pulled up, but let's just look at those last few game logs. He had 8 boards in game 1. Game before that, 5 boards. 3, and 4 in the previous games. Are you Breadwinner Bob? Are you liking the over or are you liking the under on Otto Porter rebounds? I don't have a lot of info or data on this. Let's see if I got a projection. Got a projection of 5.8. That's more than 4.5. And then at 4.5, slight betting favorite to go over at 4.5. So I'm assuming you're saying Otto Porter Jr. is getting good minutes. Did he get good minutes in the first game? I wish I could look at that, but over on Otto Porter Jr. at 4.5. Okay. I probably like Wiggins more based on what I've seen. But I don't think that's groundbreaking, right? Wiggins looks fantastic. All right, let's move on. I saw you guys mention some PRA props. My goodness. Allergies. Which PRAs are you guys liking? Let me know. Kyle saying Jaylen Brown, 32.5 PRA under. He's been going under on his points. That is for sure. Let's take a look at some of these hit rates from this game. So Jaylen Brown at 33.5 PRA, just a 43% hit rate in his last 7. So that's not very good, right? Not very good. God, I'm dying. Sorry, guys, I'm dying. Jaylen Brown at 32.5 PRA. Trying to get the demons out. Let's take a look at that one. Yeah, Wiggins over rebound still looks good to me, Moody. Still looking good to me, Moody. Brown PRA has been under a lot, says Watcher7979. Everyday Fantasy's liking some Horford at 22.5 PRA. All right, let's start with Brown here at 32.5 PRA. Throughout 5 playoff games, he's only hit the over once, and he barely did so at 33. We saw him in Game 1 against Milwaukee at just 25 PRA, so that's not looking great for Jaylen Brown. Yeah, 1 for 5, terrible. Against Milwaukee this season at 32.5 PRA, he's just 1 for 4. So I think Jaylen Brown does make a lot of sense going under on the PRA. Let's jump ahead here. Let's get you a projection on this. Terrible hit rates for Brown. I think we just continue to hit the under on Jaylen Brown at 32.5. We are seeing him at 33.5 on the books. At 33.5, they're definitely taking the under there. His projection's 38.3, but I am not buying that. That seems like a very, very questionable projection. I am not buying that. Horford over 22.5 PRA. That's an interesting look. Let's dive into that one real quick. Horford over 22.5 PRA. We're seeing Horford throughout the playoffs so far. 3 for 5, 60% hit rate, 22.5 PRA. That's not bad. Game 1, he did hit 25 PRA. Let's see what he's done against Milwaukee. At 22.5, he's 1 for 3. The only time that he hit was Game 1 of this series. Looking ahead here on Horford, 26.1 is a projection for his PRA. At 22.5, though, it looks like the public's taking the under or just not touching this prop at all. But Everyday Fantasy's liking the over at 22.5. Kevin's saying, CJ's dying to give us this info. The least we could do is smash the like button for a dying man. Jeez, I'm telling you, bro, I am like hacking up a lung. I'm freaking sweating my ass off. Whew, not a good time right now. I don't know what's going on. Any other PRA plays from the Boston-Milwaukee game? Is there any other ones that are standing out to you guys? I mean, none of the hit rates on these PRA options are looking very good. Whether that be Boston players against Milwaukee, whether that be Milwaukee players against Boston, like there's nothing that looks fantastic here in terms of hit rate, which should mean we play more unders, right, on these PRAs. I think we should play more unders. So we'll say Jaylen Brown under 32.5 PRA is probably the move out of this game, right? Let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to Golden State and Milwaukee. Golden State and Memphis. My goodness. Golden State and Memphis, looking at the PRA hit rates for these guys. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 22.5 PRA. We're getting him at 23.5. He's got an 83% hit rate in his last 6 versus Golden State. Steph Curry at 37.5 PRA on PrizePicks, 39.5 out on the books. He's got an 83% hit rate at 39.5 PRA in his last 6 versus the Grizzlies. So that's looking really good. We talked about Andrew Wiggins for rebounds. Wiggins at 21.5 PRA, 63% hit in his last 8 games against the Grizzlies. Jordan Poole still not up on the board yet. Draymond Green, 23.5 PRA. He's at 22.5 on PrizePicks. 43% hit rate in his last 7 versus Memphis. Brooks at 22.5. 23.5 on the books. 29% in his last 7 against Golden State. You got Ja at 44.5 PRA, but 43.5 on PrizePicks. Just a 25% hit rate in his last 8 versus Golden State. He's been struggling. Bane, we talked about him being banged up on the injury report. 24.5 PRA, just a 22% hit rate in his last 9 games versus the Warriors. And then Clay at 27.5, he's 0 for 2 against Memphis. SM is saying fade everyone's PRA tonight. They're tough. Either fade them or maybe take unders on them, right, SM? That could be a move too. The prop plug, you are liking Drew Holiday at 30.5 PRA. I'll just quickly backtrack and pull up a projection for that one for you and kind of see how it's looking. He's projected for 35.1. He's at 31.5 out on the books. They are betting it over at 31.5. So if they're betting it over at 31.5, then, you know, we're getting a deal here at 30.5, a discount. Lopez rebounds, those look good. Moody, Wiggins rebounds look good. The NHL Taco, I'm definitely going to be taking that. Grayson Allen for threes. I have not looked at that one yet, so I'm not quite sure. Travis just jumping in here. He's liking some Bobby Portis PRA. He's at 25.5. I'll just quickly pull that up. He's projected for 29.1. At 25.5, it looks like the public's taking the under on some sites, over on others. So kind of torn, split on that action. But yeah, Moody, I think that's a pretty good little 4-pick you got there. I like to flex my 4 picks, but if you want to power it for maybe a smaller amount. Anyway, Drew Holiday, PRA. Let's go back and look at that one. Well, no, I mean, we already looked at that one. What was the one that you guys were wanting to look at from this game? Pool should be the best PRA. Do we have any pool info? Let's look at pool. Pool. If he's at 27.5, Jordan Poole has a 67% hit rate on his PRA. We saw what he did in game 1, 48 PRA versus Memphis. Looking at previous games versus Memphis, he's 2 for 4. So we'll have to wait and see if we get Jordan Poole or not. But looking pretty good on Poole so far. 29.1 projected PRA, and then at 27.5, he is a betting favorite to go over. But kind of weird, we're also seeing his PRA prop at 25.5 on some of these books. Interesting. So hopefully we get him. I'm sure we will. They're just, you know, slow rolling us. All right, so you guys are mentioning some fantasy point plays. Let's just look at those real quick. Who were the ones you were mentioning? Let me go back through those. Draymond Green for fantasy. Lopez for fantasy. Jaylen Brown for fantasy. All right. Let's look at those. So Lopez is at 20 fantasy score. He's hit the over in 3 out of his last 5. He's 1 for 1 now against Boston. I believe I do have some fantasy projections here. Yes, I do. I got Lopez projected for 27.7 fantasy points. That's a pretty big difference. 7.7 fantasy points different than where he's at on PrizePicks. So that's a pretty big gap. I would say, yeah, that looks good. No reason to tell you otherwise. The over on Lopez fantasy looks like a strong solution, strong option. The other one you mentioned was Draymond Green. Was that right? At 32 fantasy. He's hit 32 or more in 3 out of his last 5 games. Just 22-3 against Memphis, though. Are you wanting to take the over or under on Draymond Green's fantasy? Who was that liked that prop? Breadwinner? Were you thinking over or under on Draymond Green's fantasy? I got him projected for 36.4. So that's like 4.4 fantasy points higher than where he's at 32. Bob also mentioned he's liking Jaylen Brown for fantasy at 38. So Brown not really hitting the points prop all that well, but the fantasy score has been good. I think we said his PRA was a move to take the under on. So he must be getting some steals and some blocks. Something's putting him over his fantasy points. So he's an under on PRA. Jaylen Brown is an under on PRA, but an over on fantasy points. from what it looks like. Jaylen Brown's fantasy projection, 43.7. So that's another 5 to 6 point differential versus where he's at on PrizePicks. Didn't have a good first game against Milwaukee, but has definitely hit the over on 38 fantasy pretty easily in previous games. Kyle saying that Jaylen Brown's stocks, steals, and blocks is a lock. He's calling it. Okay. Any other fantasy point props you guys want me to look at for you? You guys are saying that had it not been for the ejection, Draymond Green would have hit the over on his fantasy. Alex, stocks are steals plus blocks. Steals and blocks. So on PrizePicks, you could play blocks and steals, steals and blocks, whatever. Or you could play just blocks, or you could play just steals. But we call them stocks. Where I'm from, we call them stocks, steals, and blocks. All right, 3-point makes. Any 3-point props that you guys are liking? We saw Drew Holiday shoot a lot of threes in the last game, make a lot. But I don't know if I trust that guy. Let's go back to Milwaukee and Boston. I mean, Jason Tatum at 3.5 3-point makes, 86% hit rate in his last 7 games against Milwaukee. That's pretty big. 86% hit rate in his last 7 against Milwaukee. Okay. Brolo at 0.5 3-point makes an 80% hit rate in his last 5 against the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown at 2.5 3-point makes, 71% hit rate in his last 7 games against Milwaukee. Al Horford, we're getting him at 2, but at 1.5, he's got a 67% hit rate. So 2 out of his last 3 against the Bucks, he's hit. Bobby P, 1.5 threes, 57% hit rate in his last 7 against Boston. Talked about Drew Holiday, 1.5 threes, 50% hit rate in his last 8 against the Celtics. So 4 out of 8. No Giannis prop on the board. No Marcus Smart 3-point prop on the board. And we are getting Wes Matthews, who has 1 out of his last 3 versus Boston. A lot of you guys are talking about this kid. Grayson Allen at 2 3-point makes. Let's look at him. I've seen enough. I've finally had enough. We could take a look at Grayson Allen here and see what he's been doing. All right, so first and foremost, throughout the playoffs at 2 3-point makes, he's 4 for 6. First couple of games, 0 for whatever. Since then, though, he's hit in 4 straight games, 5, 6, 3, and 3. So basically, since Chris Middleton's went down, I think that's kind of the situation, right? Middleton's out. Allen, his numbers are up. So 5, 6, 3, and 3 in his last 4 games. Against Boston this season, he's hit 2 or more threes in 3 out of 4. So we'll call that a 75% hit rate. That's not looking too bad. How many threes did he take? Well, he played 28.8 minutes in game 1. He attempted 6 threes, knocked down 3 of 6, 50%. So he's a really good shooter. Good shooter. So we're going to need him to have a similar type of game tonight, right? On the books, he's at 2.5. They're betting the under, but he is projected for 2.6. That's right, Mr. Ibrahim. That is without Chris Middleton. So that's definitely the key factor. Middleton's out, Allen goes up. So, yeah, if, we think that they're going to take the ball out of Giannis's hands, well, then that means more shots for the guys around him, right? The Drew Holidays, the Bobby Portises, the Grayson Allens, and the Pat Connaughtons of the world. So, Moody, I say keep it in there. It could push at 2, could tie, but I would keep it in your lineup. Any threes from the late night game that you guys want to look at? Curry at 4.5 threes, 83% hit rate in his last 6 games against the Memphis Grizzlies. So he's definitely leading the way. Jordan Poole's not up on the board, but 75% hit rate in his last 8 versus the Memphis Grizzlies. No Jaren Jackson Jr. Andrew Wiggins, he's not up on the board. Ja Morant at 1.5 threes, a 38% hit rate in the last 8 meetings against Golden State. Dillon Brooks, just a 29% hit rate in his last 7 against Golden State. Desmond Bane, he's at 3. We're getting him at 3.5 on the books. 22% hit rate in his last 9 against Golden State. That's pretty bad, especially if he's like hampered in any kind of way tonight. No Draymond Green prop. Klay Thompson, 0 for 2 in his last 2 versus Memphis at 3.5. Dillon Brooks is a lock if Bane is out. You're liking Dillon Brooks for his 3-point makes, Essam? Well, anytime I see Curry at 4, I'm like, man, that looks good, right? Anytime I see Curry at 4 3-point makes. Let's just look at him through the playoffs so far. At 4, he's hit the over in 3 out of 6 playoff games against Memphis. He is now hit in 3 out of 4 games, including regular season games, so 75% hit rate at 4 3-point makes. As far as the projection on Curry, I got him going for 4.9. At 3.5, he is a big betting favorite, minus 165, minus 180 to go over 3.5. So that's why we're getting him at 4. Wow, they've already got some Philadelphia and Miami props. How are they going to put Philadelphia and Miami props up before they put all these Jordan Poole props up? That's dirty. Put Jordan Poole up. We demand it. We want it now. Yeah, so that's about it for 3-point makes. Any free throw props that you guys are liking? Let's just quickly look through these. Giannis, always going to be on the radar for free throw makes. He had plenty of opportunities in the last game, just shot a really bad percentage from the free throw line. Tatum, 4 for his last 5 at going over. I think he also missed a couple that would have probably put him over his free throw prop. So both of those guys should probably be considered. Drew Holiday, nah. He did get to the line a lot in game 1, but nah. Brown, kind of hit or miss. Curry, he's hit 5 or more free throw makes now in 4 out of 5 games. Maybe. Ja, 2 for 5? Nah. Too inconsistent. And I don't think I want to go Desmond Bane for any free throw makes. So I ain't messing with that. Blocks and steals, kind of crazy, right? Some of you guys were saying Jaylen Brown's going to be a lock for blocks and steals. He's at 1.5 on PrizePicks. He has gone over in 4 out of his last 5 games. And that's a key ingredient to why he keeps hitting his fantasy score. Those blocks and steals are worth 3 points apiece when you're talking about fantasy score props. So steals and blocks for Brown, 1.6. He's a betting favorite to go over at 1.5, minus 130. So you could go there. Wouldn't be mad at that. Marcus Smart, not the greatest hit rates. Somebody else mentioned, I think, Draymond Green, right? Yeah, he does a really good job. 80% hit rate in his last 5 games. He's projected for a healthy 2.8, betting favorite to go over at 2.5. So maybe you take Draymond Green and you throw him in an entry with Jaylen Brown. And maybe you find one other one that you're really liking, like this guy. He's usually pretty good for some blocks, some steals. Wiggins, Bane, maybe. I'm a little worried about Bane. Hopefully his injury is nothing too crazy. Ja doing a really good job at 1.5 blocks and steals. He's somebody who's not injured. He's projected for 1.9, and he's a betting favorite to go over at -140, -135. So, yeah, what I would do is maybe put like Ja, Dre, and Jaylen Brown all in like a 3-pick and then like flex it because these are so unpredictable. Blocks and steals are so crazy. But put those 3 in an entry, flex it, and keep all your blocks and steals in one entry, isolated in one entry, just in case they fail, because they do have a good likelihood of failing. What do we have for double doubles? Just Ja out there at 0.5. We know he's a triple double threat. Ja's assists are at 8.5. I've said this before. If you think Ja goes for 10 or more assists, you can just take the assists. Then you don't have to worry about the points. It's easier for him to get 9 assists than it is 10. So I wouldn't necessarily tell you to take the double-double when you could just take the assist on their own at 9. Or you could just take his rebounds on their own. He needs 8 rebounds to hit this prop. He needs 10 rebounds and 10 points to hit the double-double prop. Or 10 points and 10 assists to hit the double-double. So just make it easier on yourself. Just take the rebound prop on its own for 8. Or just take the assist prop on its own for 9. It's easier to hit 9 than it is 10. So otherwise, that's it, man. Good luck tonight. Got Taco Tuesday. Make sure you're in the PrizePicks Discord voting on the tacos. I'll be looking at some MLB stuff with the community. Appreciate everybody who's supporting through Patreon. Thank you for all your support on today's live stream. Corey, we're liking Curry for the points, just to let you know. I'm going to be taking the over on Curry's points. I think that's a good look. But yeah, just appreciate all the support. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet, and we'll catch you on the next one, man. Good luck on your entries. See ya.